The Green Tide. The Orks have been a threat since before the earliest days of the Imperium. But the close of the 41st Millennium marks an unprecedented surge in Greenskin activity. With Gork's grin leering overhead to urge them on, and their enemies too deeply mired in their own wars to hold back the Green Tide, now is the hour of the Ork. Millennium 15 to 31. The Lost Age. A time of faded mystery. The Greenskins keep no history save their own oral traditions, and care nothing for questions of their origins. Safe to say that Gork and Mork must have made the Brain Boys at some point, so that the Brain Boys could, in turn, make the Ork race. Imperial scholars have gleaned little information about the Greenskins' genesis, most of which comes from translated Eldorite texts that draw links between the Orks' creation and the fabled Old Ones. Whatever the truth, it seems certain that some terrible catastrophe during this period deprives the Greenskins of their leading caste and forces them into a crude and endlessly warlike cycle of existence. Certainly, those scattered records that survive from the dark age of technology cite Orks as a tribal and rampaging Xenos race, whose behaviors would be depressingly familiar to the Imperial commanders of the 41st Millennium. Defeat on Alano. At the height of the Great Crusade, the Emperor of Mankind leads a vast army against the sector-spanning Ork Empire of Alano, the largest concentration of Greenskins yet encountered by humanity. During the fighting, Primarch Horus Lupercal engages the fearsome warlord Urlak Uruk and successfully slays the enormous Greenskin. With Uruk's death, the coherency of the Ork defense collapses, and their defeat is ensured. Millennium 31 to 32. The Age of the Beast. A new war rising. An Ork warlord, known only as the Great Beast, stirs Greenskins into action across multiple Imperial sectors. Humanity is slow to react to this new threat, for they have enjoyed centuries of peace since the end of the Horus Heresy, and so the Xenos press forwards on every front. Destroyer moons. As the Imperium struggles to hold back the Ork Tide, the Greenskins deploy attack moons, planetoid-sized battle stations. These monstrous engines of void warfare wreak untold havoc amongst the human defenders, until at last one of them is seen hanging in the skies above Holy Terror itself. When a crusade of faith is sent against it, the Imperial death toll is horrific, leaving the Orks in orbit above the cradle of humanity. Return to Alano. With mankind on the verge of extinction, it seems that the Orks will surely claim dominion over the galaxy. Yet through the assemblage of the Imperium's greatest champions, the formation of the first ever Death Watch kill teams, and the discovery that the Greenskin invasions stem from the world of Alano Prime, the Imperium launches a last desperate fight back. They meet the Great Beast and his monstrous lieutenants in a string of fierce battles that ultimately result in Imperial victory. The Orks are defeated again, their most formidable leaders in thousands of years slain, and their strength scattered. Yet as always, they will return to bedevil the Imperium once more. Millennium 33 to 41. The Age of War. Tusker the Demon Killer. Great Boss Tusker acquires a taste for fighting demons and makes straight for the Eye of Terror. A war of like-minded lunatics gathers around him as he goes. War Tusker proceeds to rampage across demon worlds beyond counting, before finally the Eye of Khorne, the Blood God, turns upon them. Though overrun and slain by never-ending hordes of demons, Tusker's followers are transported to Khorne's own realm, there to fight for all eternity. Reborn with each blood-soaked dawn, to make war against Khorne's greatest demonic generals for the Lord of Battle's amusement. Green Tide over Ultima. The Ultima Segmentum is punished by wave after wave of greenskin uprisings and invasions. Numerous outlying worlds are overrun, and only the tireless efforts of Marneus Calgar and his Ultramarines prevent far greater destruction from occurring. War Gazbag. Gazbag, a speed-freak warlord noted for his dogged determination, if not his navigational skills, guides his war towards a group of largely unprotected paradise worlds. The vengeful Azuyani of Craftworld Baltan descend upon the invaders with destructive fury, yet find the Orks a numerous and deadly foe. Eventually, the Eldar are forced to withdraw, the flames of battle having reduced the paradise world's once verdant plains and jungles to smouldering ruins, providing Warlord Gazbag with a new empire to rule over. The War of Daka. Warlord Grog Ironteeth leads a mighty war against the burgeoning Tau Empire, gathering up all the Daka he can to counter the firepower of his more advanced foes. Danger overlooked. On the world of Hephaestion, rogue trader Maximilian Trask discovers archaeotech weapons from the Dark Age of technology. Staving off attacks by the world's green-skinned tribes, Trask prepares to transport his prize to his awaiting fleet. However, a strike force under Lord Inquisitor Shale appears in orbit, demanding Trask surrender the prescribed archaeotech. When the rogue trader, who by now is fighting off near-constant attacks from an increasing number of Orks, refuses, inquisitorial troops deploy to seize the weapons by force. As the fighting between the rogue trader's forces and inquisitorial stormtroopers escalates, Orks are increasingly drawn in, scavenging weapons and soon becoming a rampaging horde. Yet both human factions continue more or less to ignore the Greenskins, more interested in pursuing their own vendetta. After more than 3 months of warfare, Shale launches an all-out offensive against Trask's fortified dig site, and even as the bitter rivals lock blades, the jungle rings to the deafening battle cries of hundreds of thousands of Orks. From every direction, a tide of greenskins floods the compound, led by a vast stomper that smashes its way through the defensive perimeter and charges headlong into the fight. Both Imperial forces are utterly annihilated, and the weapons over which they fought so hard are cannibalized for scrap. War Hrak. The noted snakebite boss, Hrak Teethsplitter, enslaves the entire population of his old stomping grounds, the binary system Corva. He conquers the 9 shrine worlds of Marlinsact and uses the Basilica Imperator Majoris as a breeding pen for his famously incontinent squigots. Hope's Ending. Earth-cast engineers of the Kershan Sept proudly reveal an immense new colony-seeding craft. This monolithic spacefaring vessel is named, in the Tau language, Hope's Light. On its maiden voyage, and with over 300,000 Tau colonists and warriors on board, Hope's Light is boarded by the Ork fleet of Megaboss Morkrog and lost with all hands. For the next decade, the Kershan Sept faces brutal raids by Morkrog's vast new looted warship, Tau Killer. Rise of the Weird War. Upon the backwater planet of Zerk, a snakebite weird boy named Zogwart rises to prominence. Born amidst the nests of blood vipers, Zogwart's blood seethes with their venom, just as his ragged clothes crawl with their hissing bodies. Yet it is Zogwart's peculiar ability to curse his enemies and transform them into puzzled-looking squigs that really inspires the lads of his tribe to fall in line. After he squigs up his tribe's war boss, Zogwart takes control and launches an unconventional war, replacing the ruling caste of knobs with fellow weird boys, and attracting mad boys in their thousands to his banner. Zogwart's strange but undeniably potent horde conquers one planet after another, and shows no sign of slowing. The Second War for Armageddon. The visionary Ork warlord Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka invades Armageddon at the head of a massive war. Only the vast military experience and leadership of Commissar Yarek prevents the world from falling to the Greenskins within the first month of conflict. Space Marine reinforcements gradually turn the tide of the war, and Ghazghul retreats to the Golgotha sector to lick his wounds. The Lost War. The Ork warlord, Greenskins, a noted kleptomaniac, launches his war into the Moloch system. Whilst using warp travel in an attempt to reach the system, Greenskins and his horde unwittingly move through time and emerge from the shifting chaos of the Imperium shortly before they set off. Greenskins hunts down and kills his doppelganger, reasoning that this way he can have a spare to his favourite gun. The resultant confusion stops the war in its tracks. A new weapon. Nazdreg, a Blood Moon's warlord noted for his wealth and flair, bullies his mechs into performing ever more progressive and bizarre experiments. Despite some nasty setbacks, ranging from spontaneous combustion to sporadic gravity reversal, Nazdreg's mechs perfect their teleporter designs. The warlord barters his new technology with Ghazghul in exchange for an alliance. Shirek's Folly. Archon Shirek, of the Cabal of the Severed Hope, seeks to turn the green hordes of Warhammerfist against the Tau Empire colony of Corvessa. Using hit-and-run attacks, Shirek's fleet lures the much larger Ork force towards the world, but in their arrogance, they underestimate the Greenskin forces completely. Using short-range teleporter drives, a number of Warlord Hammerfist cruisers leapfrog the Drukhari, leaving them surrounded and cut off from escape into the Webway dimension. Archon Shirek's forces fight with desperate fury to escape the tightening ring of ramshackle Ork vessels. However, their resistance comes to an inglorious end when Hammerfist and his Meganob's retinue teleport on board Shirek's flagship and slice the outraged Archon to shreds with their roaring killsaws. War Snagrod. Snagrod, then Arch-Arsonist of Charadon, unites the Ork tribes of the Loki sector. The nearby Imperial colony of Bad Landing is destroyed despite a valiant defense at Krugerport. Intervention by the Crimson Fist Space Marines ensures that Snagrod's next target is the Adeptus Astartes planet of Rin's world, where, after a titanic battle, the Crimson Fist Fortress Monastery is atomized by a devastating explosion. The Orks are eventually driven off-world, but it is a hollow victory, for the once proud Crimson Fists are reduced to a fragment of their former glory. The March of Gork. A clanking horde of several thousand Gorkanauts set out from the Empire of Bork, beginning a destructive rampage that will become known as the March of Gork. From one world to the next, the lumbering machines smash everything in their path, the mechs building more Gorkanauts from every vehicle they destroy, until they are a nigh unstoppable tide of rusting metal. The tide rises higher. Wars reach epidemic levels across the Imperium. The forces of the Adeptus Astartes and Imperial Guard, already under incredible pressure from a multitude of threats, find themselves stretched thinner still, as they are forced to respond to one Ork invasion after another. Many cannot be stopped, and countless worlds are overrun by the swarming masses of belligerent Greenskins. The Third War for Armageddon. After 5 decades of planning and preparation, Ghazghul Mag Uruk Thraka returns to Armageddon at the head of an even greater war, plunging the barely recovered Imperial world into another vast and bloody war. Yet after months of grinding conflict, the world has not fallen. As the Imperium commits reinforcements to Warzone Armageddon, countless waves of Orks flood to meet them, and the war becomes a contest of grinding attrition with no end in sight. Millennium 41. The Great War. A Greater Purpose. Ghazghul's visions become more frequent as his latest invasion of Armageddon drags on. They are now accompanied by blinding head pains and crackling green lights as Gork and Mork's roars of displeasure boom through Ghazghul's mind. Leaving his generals to direct the war, Ghazghul retreats to his command ship, Killwrecker, to brood. The warlord surrounds himself with a mob of warpheads, hoping the deranged orc mystics may help to interpret his visions. Yet it is Ghazghul himself who is finally struck by inspiration. He realizes that no other orc has his ambition. For the rest of the greenskin race, a good fight like Armageddon is enough to satisfy their bloodlust. But Ghazghul can see beyond this, to something greater. Possessed by a sudden manic energy, the warlord orders Kill Wrecker to break orbit, scraping together a ragtag flotilla from whatever orc warships are nearby. Ghazghul makes for the edge of the system. He has no idea what he is searching for, only that it is not on Armageddon. A deadly pursuit. Ghazghul's departure does not go unmarked. Deep space auger stations identify Kill Wrecker moving out of the Armageddon system. High Command are notified, and both Commissar Yarrick and High Marshal Helbrecht of the Black Templars elect to give chase. These heroes of the Imperium depart Armageddon some days later, leading every warship that can be spared. The Imperium allowed Ghazghul to escape once, and it cost them dearly. Yarrick vows the same mistake will not be made again. The Beast at Bay. Despite a sizable head start, Ghazghul is tracked unerringly by his pursuers. The faster, more efficient Imperial Navy warships catch the Ork fleet several weeks after leaving Armageddon. In a dead region of space known as the Haunted Gulf, Ghazghul's ships turn at bay for a last, desperate charge into the teeth of the Imperial Navy's guns. The void comes alight with lance beams and blazing broadsides as the Ork ships thunder into the midst of their foes. Yet they stand little chance. Though they cripple several Imperial cruisers, the greenskin vessels are torn apart one by one. Yarrick and Helbrecht prepare to board Kill Wrecker and ensure Ghazghul's demise once and for all. Yet even as they ready their assault, the ship is engulfed in a blaze of green energy and disappears without a trace. Ghazghul's great task. Even as his fleet is torn apart, Ghazghul stomps around his bridge bellowing orders. The Grand Warlord is incandescent with fury, possessed of a vision so powerful that green lightning arcs around him. Their brains overwhelmed by this sudden surge of energy, his entourage of warpheads convulse as one and begin to howl and gibber madly. As the crackling energy that halos Ghazghul's skull lashes out to strike the Ork psychers, they are engulfed in green flames, their eyes bursting and skin sizzling. With electroplasmic power gushing from their maws, the warpheads speak as one. Their combined voice, the mighty roar of Gork and Mork that Ghazghul has heard all these months. Every Ork within earshot falls to their knees in awe, as the gods tell Ghazghul that this is not his time to die. They tell him that the whole galaxy must echo to the battle cry of the Ork. They charge Ghazghul with gathering a war like no other, the war of Gork and Mork themselves. To do this, he must defeat every other warlord, bring every last greenskin under his sway, and unite them all in a crusade that will drown the stars in war. Ghazghul must bring about this great war, and in so doing call forth Gork and Mork to lead the boys in a glorious battle that will last forever. Their message delivered, the weird boys explode in ripe showers of wet viscera, and a tide of green energy rolls outwards from them, frying every system on Ghazghul's ship and crippling his pursuers. Kill Wrecker is immediately hurled into warp space, emerging somewhere, and somewhen, else entirely. Left in Ghazghul's wake is a rapidly expanding spatial anomaly from which his pursuers are forced to flee in desperate haste. Within days it swells into a raging warp storm, which in turn joins with other cascading anomalies as the Great Rift tears its way across the galaxy. The Great War. Kill Wrecker drops out of the warp into the sprawling territory controlled by Warlord Urgok the Slayer. Ghazghul is revitalized, red eyes blazing with new purpose. Killwrecker makes straight for Urgok's mighty space fortress. Knowing his only advantage is surprise, Ghazghkull fires up his ship's teleporter, transporting himself and a mob of his baddest knobs in a roaring blast of light directly into Urgok's throne room. Urgok looks on in horror as Ghazghkull tears through his bodyguards as though they were rowdy grots. Then, trampling over their mangled corpses with his shooter still smoking, Ghazghkull looms over his cowed rival and invites him to join the Great War. Most of Urgok's boys join the war willingly. Those too slow to spot which way the wind is howling are quickly beaten into submission, or volunteer to undergo the tender ministrations of Mad Dr. Grotznik. Within weeks, news of Ghazghkull's new war spreads far and wide. The massive war boss's legend reaches the ears of orcs hundreds of light years away, sparking the first stirring of a greenskin migration on a scale never before seen. With a whole new war at his disposal and Urgok his personal toady, Ghazghkull turns his attention to the galactic southeast on the Ork Empire of Octarius. If the whole galaxy is going to be engulfed in conflict, Gork and Mork will need a lot more greenskins for their great war. Besides, Ghazghkull has decided to show the Ork ruler of Octarius what a real overfiend looks like. Millennium 41. Age of the Ork. Gork's grin widens. The Great Rift tears the Imperium in two. Renegade fleets, traitor warbands, and ravening demonic invasions bedevil every world from one end of the galaxy to the other. War abounds like never before, and the Greenskins are right in the thick of it. Weird boys are gripped by visions of the Ork gods. Gork's grin chews up entire greenskin empires, spurring immense wars that drive countless worlds to their knees. The remnants of shattered tribes form warp-twisted freebooter warbands beyond counting, while Ork warbands plow into swirly things all along the boundaries of the Great Rift. Some are never seen again, of course, but many more are spat out of Gork's Moor, straight into the best fights of their lives. Great expectorations. Old Zogwat's Weird War is swallowed up by the trailing edge of the Abraxas warp storm. Weeks later, Imperial astropaths in the Morogrim system experience a foul vision of the Ork god Mork, letting fire with a mucously eruptive sneeze all over their capital world of Morogrim Prime. This is rapidly followed by the arrival of Weird War Zogrod, whose warships burst from the Imperium coated in glowing green ectoplasm. Supercharged by their deity's revolting blessings, Zogwart's hordes utterly annihilate Morogrim's defenders. An enticing prize. Mad Dr. Grotznik leads a warband of painboys, cyborgs, and specifically modified killer cans in an attack upon an isolated strike cruiser of the Silver Templars chapter. He seizes a number of Primaris Space Marines alive, though what the deranged Ork intends to do with his captives is best not imagined. Everywhere at once. Conflicting reports by Imperial strategos concerning the location of Ghazghkull cause consternation at the highest levels of the Munitorum. The Grand Warlord is documented to be within the Empire of Octarius, leading vast greenskin armies against Tyranid and Imperial forces in that region, and yet he is simultaneously sighted at the sacking of Cantissa, upon the killing fields of Orochtha in the Imperium Nihilus, and joining the fighting around the forge world of Risa. Punitive executions decimate the command staff charged with tracking Ghazghkull's movements, even after it is formally observed that as the Greenskins of the Great War are using warp storms to navigate the galaxy, extreme empiric time dilation may be to blame for the confusion. After 7 years of brutal warfare, and thanks partly to the arrival of several companies of the Riftstalkers chapter, the forces of the Imperium finally defeat their Chaos foes in the Bargeist Stars. A grand triumph is held, with parades and martial celebrations spreading glory across a dozen loyalist worlds. Yet at the celebration's height, war boss Gruk Faceripper appears at the head of a brand new war. His greenskins flood the planets of Tremendix, and Aposia before the horrified Imperial defenders can rally their forces and plunge the beleaguered Bargai stars back into bloody war. The Green Fist. A warp anomaly resembling an immense green fist encloses around the traitor world of Eisenfell. Freebooter warbands gather in the void aboard their kill cruisers, hoping to watch Gork's fist crush the Chaos Gits. Instead, they are dragged in by the anomaly's gravitic fluctuations and plunge into a war with the planet's renegade rulers. So begins a frantic and madcap conflict upon a world that is being slowly crushed into rubble and ruin. The Shootiest Boss. After a temporary parley with Badruck's freebooters in the Trugrug system, Warlord Nasdrek turns his war towards the Farside enclaves. Mighty Bad Moon's war leader has heard the tales of the War of Darka and is dead set on proving that his lads are far shootier than some shifty bunch of pirate gits. Besides which, Nasdrek has now heard of the Storm Surge artillery walker and is intent on building one into a stomper. Soon enough, Commander Farsight and his Tau followers find their worlds beset by this fresh new peril. False Sanctuary. The Antonis Crusade gathers amidst the darkness of the Imperium Nihilus. After crushing the Orks of Antonis Delta into a mere fragment of their former might, the Imperial forces set forth to reclaim Antonis Enigma, Antonis Pharaxis, and Antonis Gemini. However, the arrival of several warbands of the Night Lord's traitor legion sees the fighting go against the Crusade. Falling back upon their safe haven of Antonis Delta, the Crusade's leaders are horrified to find that tribe after tribe of resurgent feral Orks have overrun their cities and strongpoints in the interim. Caught between the heretic Astartes and Squiggoth-riding greenskin hordes, the Imperial forces are annihilated. Rude Awakenings. While attempting to loot the ancient treasure of a Necron tomb world, the death skulls of War-Zort trigger the planet's reanimation protocols. Canoptic constructs by the thousands surround the greenskin invaders, but far from being intimidated, the death skulls are delighted. Scavenging and stealing at will, the Orks cobble together hordes of cyborgs and Morkanauts, and ever more improbable superweapons, while using a hijacked Necron dolmen gate to ferry in wave upon wave of reinforcements. By the time Overlord Thamptek, the Magnificent, awakens to take command of his legions, he does so to the sight of a mob of leering Meg-boys standing over his sarcophagus. Evil gleams in their eyes and revving power tools in their hands. Vengeance for Rin's World. Rejuvenated by a great influx of Primaris battle brothers, the Crimson Fist declare a crusade of vengeance against the entire Ork race. Several wars are diverted by their warlords in the hopes of a truly apocalyptic punch-up. Unlikely Saviors. The Imperial world of Jackdaw is on the verge of being overrun by Skull Knight's Chaos Space Marines when a huge Bloodaxe horde bursts from the warp and crushes the renegade force. The Orks then pull back to the fringe of the system. Surviving Imperial defenders are bemused until they realize with dawning horror that their incoming reinforcements, called for by astropaths almost a month earlier, will present the Orks with what they see as a proper scrap. Desperate missives are fired out into the warp in the hopes of turning the reinforcement fleet aside, but with the Imperium churned to madness, they are lost. Just days later, a force of Space Wolves and Vostroyans arrive, and the Orks surge into battle once again. Kruldaka's Onslaught. Warlord Kruldaka descends upon the Imperial world of Vigilus in the galactic north at the head of an enormous speed war. The planet's vast hive spores are protected by force fields, and its Imperial defenders drive off the initial greenskin assaults with comparative ease. Undeterred, the Orks build vast scrap cities in the desiccated wilds and engage in deadly races across the planet's dust-bowl deserts. Word spreads of a world where Orks can find the best races, and fresh hordes flock to Vigilus by the week. So it is that, When the coming of the Great Rift collapses Vigilus's force fields, the subsequent Greenskin invasions are catastrophically destructive.